Look at your hand now. Open it. And look at the palm. Those lines that are there, you have seen them, but you probably never understood what they are trying to tell you. Because there is something engraved on the palm of your hand that goes far beyond what science can explain and what the scriptures already pointed to millennia ago. And if you have reached this video, there is a very specific reason for it. It is not an algorithm. It is not a coincidence. It is a sign. And I will prove this to you in the next few minutes with a depth that will change the way you see yourself forever. Because who you are was not decided by accident. You were set apart. You were marked. And that mark is on the palm of your hand. Before continuing, answer me one thing sincerely. Have you ever had the feeling that you were made for something much greater than your current life demonstrates? Not of vanity, not of pride, but a deep certainty, almost inexplicable, that there is a specific mission waiting for you. A restlessness that does not pass, even when everything around you seems reasonably well. That feeling that wakes you up at 3 in the morning with thoughts that cannot be silenced. That makes you look at your routine and feel that something is out of place, not because your life is bad, but because you know it could be infinitely more meaningful. If you answered yes, even if only in the silence of your heart, you need to hear everything I have to tell you today. Because this restlessness has a name, it has an origin, and it has concrete proof, physical, biblical, and scientific, that it is not a fantasy. It is a calling. And this proof begins exactly on the palm of your hand. Let us begin with what science already knows, and what few people have connected to spirituality. Chirology, the study of the lines and marks of the hands, is one of the oldest disciplines of humanity. Aristotle wrote about it. Alexander the Great consulted hand-reading specialists before each military campaign. The Emperor of China during the Han Dynasty recorded palm prints of his high officials as a measure of identity. And in modern medicine, the analysis of palmar marks, called dermatoglyphics, is used for genetic, neurological, and even psychiatric diagnoses. There are specific marks on the hands that doctors associate with Down syndrome, schizophrenia, and autism. Science has already proven that the lines of your hand are not random. They are the reflection of who you are at the deepest level of your being. But science stopped there, because science does not have the instruments to go beyond the physical, and it is exactly where science stops that the spirit begins. Job, one of the most powerful characters in the entire Bible, said something extraordinary in chapter 37, verse 7. He seals the hand of every man, that all men may know his work. Read that phrase again carefully. He seals the hand of every man. The word seal, in the original Hebrew, chatam, has the meaning of marking with a signet, of printing a sign of identity, of leaving a signature. It was the way the kings of antiquity authenticated their documents, with a ring engraved in wax. God, according to Job, does this with the hand of every human being. Each hand is a document authenticated by the Creator himself, and this document contains the identity of the work for which that person was destined. This should make the spine of your neck tingle, because it means that the story of your life was not written by chance. It was sealed, it was printed, it was authenticated by an intelligence that is infinitely beyond your capacity for comprehension. But then the question arises that will change everything. If every person has a sign, why do so few actually fulfill the great work for which they were set apart? Why do most people spend their entire lives feeling this calling and never responding to it? Why does the destiny of so many people remain imprisoned between consciousness and action? This is the most important part of this entire video. And the answer has 3 layers that need to be unfolded one by one. The first layer is what I call the amnesia of the calling. There is a process that happens to most people between childhood and adulthood, especially in the Brazilian context, where the pressure for financial survival is real and intense, that functions as a progressive erasure of the consciousness of purpose. A 6-year-old child knows exactly what they want to be. They speak with conviction, with a sparkle in their eyes, with a frightening clarity about their mission in the world. Then come the school years that standardize. Come the well-intentioned family members who say that doesn't make money. Comes the first job that is necessary, but is not a vocation. Comes the marriage, the children, the bills, the financing, the routine. and the calling is pushed down layer by layer, year after year, until at some point between 35 and 50 years old, exactly the age group of those watching this video, it begins to scream back, louder, with more urgency, as if the time to ignore it were running out. It is not a midlife crisis. It is not misdiagnosed depression. It is the Spirit trying to wake you up to what you came to do on this earth before it is too late. The second layer is fear disguised as humility. This is the most treacherous of all, because there is a form of humility that is genuine, the honest recognition that we are dependent on God and that we do nothing without Him. But there is another form of humility that is not a virtue. It is an escape. It is the person who says, "Who am I to have a great mission?" when in reality what they are saying is, "I am afraid to try and fail. I am afraid to expose myself. I am afraid to discover that I am not enough." And the devil loves to use this religious language of false humility to keep extraordinary people paralyzed in ordinary lives. Because if he can make a chosen one believe they were not chosen, he wins without needing to fight. Moses did exactly this. When God appeared to him in the burning bush and declared that he would be the instrument of liberation for an entire people, Moses' response was a series of objections. "Who am I? What if they do not listen to me? I am slow of speech and tongue." 4 chapters of excuses before finally yielding to the calling. And look at what happened when he yielded. Look at what Moses became. Look at what God did through a man who thought himself incapable. This pattern repeats throughout the Bible, and it repeats in your life as well. Every time you diminish your calling, you are repeating the pattern of Moses before the bush. The question is, when will be your moment to cross the river? The third layer is the confusion between calling and condition. This is one of the greatest spiritual traps that exist, especially for the Brazilian who grew up with prosperity theology on one side and resignation theology on the other, without finding the balance. Many people confuse calling with financial condition. They think they can only fulfill their purpose when they have enough money. Others confuse calling with social position, only when they have the title, the recognition, the platform. And there are still those who confuse calling with personal perfection. Only when I have rid myself of all my defects, then I will be ready. And so the calling remains suspended in a future that never arrives, because the ideal condition will never exist. God does not call the prepared, He prepares the called, and this preparation happens on the way, not before it. David was anointed king while he was still a boy who smelled of sheep. Paul was chosen while he was still persecuting Christians. Peter was called while he still smelled of fish and did not know how to read. The divine pattern is to call where you are, not where you think you should be. And the sign on the palm of your hand was already there before any condition that you still needed to reach. Now I need to tell you about the specific marks that scholars of the scriptures and chirology identify as signs of an extraordinary calling. I'm not going to tell you that you need to have a perfect star-shaped line to be special, because that would be superficiality. What exists and what has been documented in ancient cultures around the world are patterns that, when combined with other elements of the person's life, point to a specific nature of destiny. The first mark is what chirologists call the line of high purpose, a line that crosses the palm with uncommon depth and clarity, frequently connecting different regions of the hand in a way that does not exist in most people. In ancient Hebrew traditions, this mark was called the line of the Spirit, and it was interpreted as the visible trace of a spiritual mission inscribed before birth. In modern medicine, we know that palmar lines form while still in the mother's womb, between the 10th and 14th week of gestation, before any experience, before any choice. They are not formed by what you lived, they are formed by what you are. The second mark is the depth of the heart line, not in the sentimental sense of romance, but in the sense of the capacity for emotional impact on other people. People with a calling of influence, teachers, spiritual leaders, healers, transformative artists, frequently present a deep and well-defined heart line, indicating an above-average capacity to connect with the internal experience of others. This has a neurological explanation as well. People with high empathy present a higher density of mirror neurons in the cerebral cortex, and this characteristic, like the palmar lines, is determined genetically. The third mark is what chirological studies call islands, specific interruptions in the main lines that do not indicate weakness, as was thought in the past, but rather periods of intense transformation. Each island is a crisis that was necessary to produce the version of you that the calling demands. Each rupture in the line is a rupture in life that did not destroy you, it redefined you. And if you are over 35 years old and look back at your life, you can probably identify these moments. The loss that changed everything, the bankruptcy that took you off the wrong path, the relationship that ended and placed you face to face with who you really are, the illness that forced you to stop and hear what your spirit had been trying to tell you for years. These were not punishments, they were islands of transformation, and they were engraved on your hand before you lived them. Stay with me, because now I am going to show you how all of this connects with what you need to do in a practical way. Because recognizing the sign is only half the way. The other half is responding to it. There is a spiritual principle that I call the activation of the calling, and it has 3 stages that need to happen in sequence so that the destiny inscribed on your palm begins to manifest in your real life. The first stage is declared recognition, not just internal recognition, that whisper you have had for years that you were made for something greater, but verbalized recognition, declared out loud, made before God and yourself. There is a power in declaration that is absolutely documented in the Scriptures. Romans 10 verse 10 says that, "With the heart one believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation." The divine model is always interior, followed by exterior. Believing in the heart and declaring with the mouth. Many people believe in the calling deep down, but never declare it, and therefore never fully activate it. Today, at the end of this video, I am going to ask you to make a declaration, and it will change something in you. The second stage is the alignment of the environment. Calling and environment need to be in harmony. There is a reason why God took Abraham out of Ur before fully revealing his destiny. There is a reason why Joseph needed to go to Egypt. There is a reason why Paul stayed 3 years in Arabia after his conversion. The calling demands a process of separation from what no longer fits. Not necessarily from people, although sometimes it is from people, but from habits, from limiting beliefs, from environments that drain instead of feed, from relationships that diminish instead of expand. Look at your surroundings now and ask yourself honestly, is my environment preparing me for the great work, or is it keeping me small? The third stage is incremental obedience. This is the one that scares people the most, because it seems that the calling demands an immense leap, a radical turn, a drastic change. But most biblical callings did not start that way. It started with a step, a yes, a here I am without knowing all the details of what would come next. Moses stretched out the staff over the sea before seeing the sea open. The priests of Israel placed their feet inside the Jordan before the waters stopped. The faith that activates the calling is always the faith that acts before seeing the result. And the first step never needs to be perfect. It only needs to be taken. There is a story that impacted me deeply and that I need to share with you. It is the story of a 52-year-old woman from Recife who spent more than 20 years as an administrative assistant in a medium-sized company. A functional, organized life without great crises, but marked by that dull restlessness that would not pass. She knew there was something more. She dreamed about it, she prayed about it, and she blamed herself for it, because she thought it was ingratitude, that she should be grateful for what she had and stop wanting more. Until one day, in a common prayer, she looked at the palm of her hand for no rational reason and felt something she described as an internal click, as if something had clicked into place. And she said out loud, alone in her room, "I was made to truly help people." Simple as that, without ceremony, without witnesses, just an honest declaration made to the Creator. In the following months, in a way she still cannot fully explain, a series of opportunities began to open. She started a small emotional support group in her community. That group grew. She took a course in counseling. Today she serves more than 200 families a year, leads a restoration ministry that has spread to 4 cities and, in her words, "I am finally living what was written on my hand since I was born." 52 years old. It was not late. It is never late for the calling that God sealed. And you? What is the declaration you have not yet made? What is the step you have not yet taken? What is the version of you that is waiting to be recognized, not by the world, not by the family, not by the pastor, but by yourself in silence before the Creator who marked you before you were born? Because here is what most people do not understand about the calling. It does not depend on external validation. The sign on the palm of your hand was not placed there to be approved by anyone. It was placed there as a contract between you and the eternal, a contract sealed before your arrival in this world, which remains active regardless of what others think about you, regardless of the times you failed, regardless of the years you took to wake up to it. Jeremiah 1 verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. Before formed, before born. The separation came before everything. This was not exclusive to Jeremiah. It was the model of how God operates. He calls before, he marks before, and then he uses the time of your life so that you discover what was already defined before you existed. You are not reading this text by accident. You did not click on this video on impulse. There is an intelligence greater than that of the algorithm that brought you here, and this intelligence has a name and a very specific purpose for your life. And the message I need to reach the center of your being today is this: it is not late. You did not miss the time. You are not too old. You are not too small. You are not too weak. The mark is on your hand. The calling is alive. And the Creator who sealed you is only waiting for you to say yes. But pay attention, because this is the point where many people stumble. Saying yes to the calling does not mean the path will be easy. It means exactly the opposite, because great works demand great processes, and the process will test everything you believe about yourself, about God, and about the world. There will be moments when you will want to give up. There will be people who will doubt you, sometimes those closest to you. There will be phases when the silence of God will seem like abandonment, but it is precisely in these phases that the sign on the palm of your hand needs to be remembered. Literally. Look at it when doubt comes. Remember that those lines were printed before any failure of yours, before any error, before any limitation. They exist as a physical memory of the eternal contract that was made over your life. David carried the anointing of king for years before sitting on the throne. Joseph went through the pit, slavery, and prison before reaching the palace. Paul was blind for 3 days before seeing the calling clearly. The path between the sign and the manifestation is always marked by a process that seems to contradict the promise. But it does not contradict. It prepares. And you are already in the middle of this process. Everything you have lived until now has been part of your formation for what is coming. I want to leave you now with a simple and powerful practice that I want you to do today. Take a moment alone. It could be when lying down, it could be early in the morning before everyone wakes up, it could be in the car before entering work. Open both hands with palms facing up, look at them, and make this declaration out loud. Lord, I recognize that you have sealed me, that my calling came from you before my birth, that the marks of my life, both the blessings and the wounds, are part of my preparation for the great work. I surrender to the process. I take the next step with faith, and I declare that I am set apart for something that goes beyond me, and that will impact lives I do not yet know. In the name of Jesus, I assume my calling. Amen. Make this declaration, and then tell me in the comments what you felt. Write the word calling, just that, and let me see how many people are waking up to the sign they carry on the palm of their hands. Because when a chosen one wakes up, it is not just their life that changes, it is the life of everyone around them. And Brazil desperately needs people who have woken up to the calling. People over 35 years old, with history, with scars, with beaten and tested faith, who decide that it is not over yet, that the best is yet to come, that the great work begins now. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, this is the moment. Click the red button, activate the bell, and join this community of people who take the calling seriously. Every week there is content that will touch on points that most people are afraid to address, about spiritual identity, about destiny, about what it really means to be set apart by God in a generation like this. You will not want to miss it. In the next video, I will reveal something that will shake any limiting belief that is still holding you back, and that will show you exactly why your past difficulties were not punishment. They were selection. Until then, you were sealed, you were set apart, and the angel of the Lord is ensuring that you reach the destiny that was written before you were born. Go with God.